Welcome to Global Diabetes Insights. Today, we are honored to be joined by two remarkable global diabetes advocates. It's unfortunately supposed to be three, but it's all good. We have Priyanka and we have Osarenkhoe here. I mean, I love to say that the shorter name, like Leon, but I mean, of course, she prefers this one. So together I believe we explore this intersection of lived experience and advocacy, policy, systems change, trying to examine those things that we believe that what it takes to move from individual stories to global action and how we can build a future where dignity, equity, and access are at the heart of the diabetes care. Thank you so much for being part of this podcast again for the second time after the first incident, of course. So I'll briefly ask you both to introduce yourselves. So maybe we'll start with you, Priyanka.
Hello again, Tino. Hello, Osarenkhoe. I am Priyanka. I am a person living with type 2 diabetes. I have been insulin resistant for as long as I can remember, but I have been a type 2 diabetic for about 12 years now. Like Tino mentioned, I work in health policy. That is my professional career. I used to work in global type 1 diabetes health policy. I was the Global Access Policy Director for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, now known as Breakthrough T1D, and I led their global access programs in India and Africa.
Oh,
And I had the pleasure of working with both Tino and Leon in that capacity.
wow, that was so great. Thank you so much. And if we can jump quick to Osayenka, if you could briefly introduce yourself, you and me as well.
My name is Osarenkhoe Ethel Chima-Nwogwugwu, a person living with type 2 diabetes, previously gestational diabetes, before I was later diagnosed with type 2 diabetes for the past 26 years. An entrepreneur and a humanitarian. I'm a member of the Blue Circle Voices of the IDF initiative. I'm also a member of the Diabetic Association Nigeria. I run my own NGO with my other colleagues, Diabetes and Limb Salvage Foundation, called DLSF. I'm also a two-time member of the Views, Our Voices Global Advisory Committee, and also I'm a member of the Nigerian NCD Alliance. I'm an entrepreneur. I run my own business, Chima Ventures Limited.
What are those titles? My God, you ladies are amazing. So thank you so much. Basically, I think it's the few things that we know when we see you doing diabetes work, but also, of course, we know that there's life after diabetes, there's life after advocacy. We're going to talk about that later, of course. But yeah, thank you so much for staying true to your word, standing strong and everything that you do in the space, also trying to balance life and your own careers as well. I think that's been amazing. So we cannot thank you enough in the things that you do. You're always available, not free, but you always make time available for the things that you believe in. And thank you for taking the time again for the second time to do this podcast. Our first question for the day would for the both of you. You have transformed personal experiences into leadership advocacy. So I want to just maybe ask, because I believe the audience wants to know as well, what moments in your diabetes journey shaped the work you do today?
My diabetes journey has actually been very pivotal to my career. So my career, funnily enough, began in finance. I actually had a master's in international business, and I started my career on Wall Street doing finance, mergers and acquisitions. That was my work. But it was a very high stress career. When I was around 26, 27 years old, tried to have a family. I got diagnosed with basically pre-diabetes and insulin resistance and polycystic ovarian syndrome. Like the whole thing just hit me in one shot. And the advice that was given to me by doctors in Australia was that I couldn't have a very high stress career and I should basically focus on getting pregnant, essentially. That should be the focus of my fertility journey. I was 28. I was very young. I was very passionate, and I was a very passionate advocate at that point, and I couldn't understand how could this be happening to me. In my head, diabetes was a condition that happens to people, and I had all these stigma in my head about people who have diabetes. In my head, I was just like, this is not possible, and I tried to resist it but I was forced to the point I actually had to get support for family planning, and I ended up having to do IVF to have a child. But part of that journey, because IVF is very intensive, it's a bit of an emotional roller coaster. It forced me to consider a career that wasn't as stressful as the consultancy or the finance that I was familiar with. So I decided to take some time off and become a consumer advocate and talk about my lived experience of navigating fertility and type 2 diabetes. And that set me off in that career. And I joined what still is the Consumers Health Forum of Australia, which is the national peak body for lived experience for consumers. And that set me off on a journey of working with a whole lot of health peaks in Australia, and to the point that it was actually during the pandemic that I was approached by then the vice president of the Global Access team, Tom Robinson, who funnily enough was based in Australia, and they were weirdly enough hiring in Australia, looking for someone to lead their policy work. And that's how I got involved with diabetes specifically for the first time. That led to, as you know, the publication of the Lancet paper on the Global Type 1 Diabetes Index, on which I was a co-author, and then the work in low-income settings in Africa, in Ethiopia, Nigeria, Ghana, and in India, to the point where I think it led the government of India now adopting type 1 diabetes as part of the welfare program. So it definitely impacted my career, and that trajectory with my own lived experience of diabetes has contributed immensely to my career.
When I was diagnosed of gestation, I never knew anything about gestation. I never heard about it before. I managed it. My journey continued. I started reading more. But when I was not diagnosed with type 2, I was introduced to the support group. And I'm still an entrepreneur. I never worked I've always worked with the private sector. I was very volunteer, even as a young girl. So diabetes was never. When I was diagnosed, it became fault that I had gestational, and it wasn't my fault that I later was diagnosed with type 2. But in India, I noticed that people were not aware. So being part of Diabetic Association of Nigeria exposed me to ideas. So I became a vocal person, talking about it. People were being stigmatized. A lot of people were living denial, and people were not just aware. So being a face encouraged a lot of people to come out to speak. So, and those IDF, when you are vocal, they give you leadership role. In Diabetic Association in Nigeria too, I became the chairman of my association, and that pushed me. That also gave me a business line, consumable for point of care. I became a distributor. I love selling. I can market very well. That was apparently what I was doing in the businesses I was running. I was now recommending what I was using for myself. People wanted to use it to get better. And so I added that as my entrepreneurship businesses that I do. So helping to get people to get the best point of care for their health to live longer. So I decided giving me more leadership role, and I was doing very well, representing Nigeria, representing Africa, and speaking well. And that is how I turned my supposedly a condition to become a win, a gain and a win, myself and for my community and for Africa. And that's how I became a leader. So everywhere I go now, I became a face, I became a symbol, became a hope, became a voice. And the rest is where we are today.
I think you speak with great passion and everything that you do. It's like you're enjoying it. People would ask me, like, does it seem like you love this diabetes? If the Supreme is to ask you, Tino, would you want your diabetes to go? We feel like you would even reason with him to say, no, I don't want it to go. Because you feel like many of the opportunities that are coming, they're because of the diabetes. And then people say, of course, I think you love more opportunities that are coming from that. Both of you have said already, taking that condition that we have, take advantage of it, and not really to feel pity for yourselves, and not wanting the world to feel pity for ourselves. No, we don't want that. We just want to do the best that we can without having to feel sorry for ourselves, because it's not going to change. We don't even know like when this diabetes is going to be cured. But yeah, we hope, because we have heard so many stories, so many research are being done, and sometimes, yes, there are lies. So many things are coming in the play. But yeah, thank you so much for using your voices, for making your lived experiences in a way, like as a standing stone, like to just maybe I want to use this opportunity and speak about it. As we go to our second question, I think I would want to ask from your personal stories to how you using it for public policy, for change. We have read so many stories in advocacy journeys, not just for diabetes, but for other conditions. And of course, we don't compare disease conditions, but yes, I think there's been a lot of change, especially in the HIV fight. People have done so much, and so we appreciated so much of the things that they've been able to achieve, and we are trying to copy or to learn from them, not really to copy, but of course we want to see those great examples coming to our own advantages also. What the audience would want to know is we often say that stories change lives, but we believe that the policies is the policy that can change a system. How can these lived experiences be translated into meaningful and measurable policy action in our day-to-day lives today? What can you say to us?
Right now, as we are talking, I am also sitting on the other side. We are doing a review. There's a review. I'm part of that. So we are changing the toolkit for diabetes. Policies are being changed. Like 3 years ago, I was at Abuja. They didn't have to, I found my way. And for those of us who are living with hypertension, sickle cell, NCD to be precise, to the Minister of Health, and directly as a participant, decisions should not be taken for us. We need to be co-create audience. And since then, for the past 3 years, all have changed. And that's why 2 months ago, I was also part of the review committee for diabetes guideline. And then as we are coming out, we are giving other people living with non-communicable disease in Nigeria the hope. When you see, I support sickle cell, I support hypertension, I support cancer, I support mother and child in my community. And we are making policies is being implemented now. We're not looking for new policies. We have more than enough policies already. They were not being implemented. We were not involved when they were made. So they are being reviewed. And we are part of those review team. So I'm happy to say that that is happening in my country. And I'm happy to be the voice, a lived experience for everyone.
From my own experience, the most important aspect of lived experience is essentially, the slogan you hear everywhere, nothing about us without us. And it emerged from the disability movement in the early part of, I think, this century. But I think it's really pivotal to every sort of patient-led movement, like anything that impacts, it's that baseline principle of ensuring that the people who are going to be impacted by whatever policy, whatever program, they are a central part of the actual design and the delivery of whatever it is you're designing. So for me, I think with diabetes and I think across health policy, it becomes really important to have that whatever it is that you're hoping to create. And I think with diabetes policy, I think we saw when we did the Lancet publication and we looked at the numbers, I think it became very obvious that while the living prevalence, the ones who are impacted, those are the type 1 diabetes communities that we need to work with, that need to be involved in services and access policies. And unfortunately, I do not think that is still happening on the global level, even on the local level. I think the countries we try to work with, while there is a lot of increasing recognition of type 1 diabetes as one of those so-called severe NCDs, I don't actually think should be in the program design and the policy decision making. So I think there's still a very long way to go in low-income countries to enable that community-led policy decision making. So there's still a huge gap there, and I'd like to see that change.
Thank you so much for keeping the hope alive itself. I think we need that. I think that's what will get us to where we want to get to. One thing that I've learned even from the HIV and AIDS advocacy journey is like they did so much and so many things have changed. But even if those things are changed, we have so much coming from the cycles of donations, international funding. But even if those things are there, they are short term, right? Just check with what happened with the US aid when it was cut, right? Even if those things are there, I think there's need for a policy change like we're talking about right now. Because if the government or if our systems are not ready enough to take over from whatever is coming in the country, whatever the aid they're getting, and if they're not prepared, 20 years of success could tend to nothing if things are to change. Well, they still need for us to do so much, and I'm just
It
hopeful.
needs to change.
Absolutely. I actually think that was a big lesson. I think it was a huge lesson for low-income countries, seeing the dismantling of USAID and the dismantling
Yes.
of what was decades of investment from, yes, both America, but also a lot of the host countries. To see that effort dismantled so quickly and so rapidly. I think I exited for the health and well-being of their own citizens. And while we can rely on philanthropic aid and we can rely on expertise from high-income countries, at the end of the day, those countries are not tied to live in low-income countries. And more often than not, it is almost a charitable endeavor to them. And when, in a lot of ways, the health in low-income countries is not the priority of high-income countries, and that has been made very clear. So, if anything, we should be advocating into the health and well-being of people in each country.
The review, the government is waiting, the Ministry of Health is waiting for foreign sponsorship, which doesn't make sense. The government can sponsor they sponsor their political move, and they spend a lot of money, much more than that. So I'm asking, why are we shortened? I had to be online. I was supposed to be in Abuja from across the country. They couldn't host us because there was no funds. And the foreign NGO sponsoring that could not accommodate everybody. So we have to be online. So such very key toolkit is being treated as not important. And this is what is going to change the lives of the 2 million Nigerians that has been affected by hypertension. What investment is important. Tanzania say they have invested in health from 7% to 24% in 2026. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
That's remarkable.
Yeah, it's incredible. I actually had the privilege to visit the Pen Plus clinics in Dodoma. I actually traveled with the Pen Plus team out in Tanzania, and the work that they're doing is fantastic. It's a demonstration that if government is keen, fantastic work can happen. And the Brigham team, and I have to call out Dr. Gene Bookman and the incredible work that he's done with Pen Plus and how Africa, it's a real credit to the work that's been done on the ground. I'd encourage more and more people to look into that model and to
internal investment is what's going to change it for low and middle income countries, especially in Africa. We need to invest.
The Pen Plus initiative, like you both were talking about, I think yes, it's a game changer, and I think we should take a lot of learning from them because they are not just trying to fund something; they are starting something amazing, and also in a way trying to capacitate the government so that they can take over from that. And they are not just doing these meetings for themselves to see like how well they've done, where the funding is coming, but of course the government's representative, they're also coming, they're also part of that. Africa CDC is also part of it, so which is amazing. And we're seeing that. Like I think for the FESTI conference, we were together with Priyanka in Tanzania as well, as she was still sitting in the breakthrough realms, breakthrough team, and is also part of the main funders of that Pen Plus. And for the second one, we were together with Osarenkhoe in Abuja, Nigeria, for the second one. And the third one, I don't know why they have to go back to Tanzania, but I mean that's a story for another day. Let's just focus on our point. For the third question that we have is something that we've always heard, something that is always been the case. I remember once there was a conference in India about stigma. For me, I was like, I didn't think it was a big issue in Zimbabwe. But then yesterday, when I was just in clinic, there was a mother who said that she had to remove a kid from the formal school that she was in because of the stigma. The teachers were not accommodating because they wanted to change teachers. Then they said, no, no, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse. I'm not there to pay close attention to your kid because she needs special treatments. So I think it's better you take your kid out of our school because I don't have that time, that kind of a thing. So I think, yes, diabetes is still surrounded with this blame, the stigma, the misconceptions. Maybe what we could discuss is what do you think needs to change?
Stigma, by its very definition, is something that is reluctance. So you are reluctant to talk about something because you feel there are a lot of barriers that prevent you from discussing it. And also people have their own barriers in their understanding of that issue. So I think the first step in removing that stigma is normalizing the condition itself, normalizing talking about it. I still know a lot of people with type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes, who feel that they have to go into a restroom to inject themselves, who feel a lot of stigma around taking out an injection and injecting something like insulin in public where someone might see them. I think the first step really is to normalize. And I think in a lot of high income countries in, Western developed countries, that stigma has been broken down to a big extent. You do have celebrities who have their CGM patches or their insulin pumps that they display, and it's almost seen as, a type of awareness raising. And I think that similar work does need to happen in a lot of low-income developing countries, where we need to normalize talking about conditions like type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, talk about how this is a health condition and how injecting insulin is just a part of self-care and maintaining your well-being. So I think that is really the kind of call of the day. And I know there's a lot of good work happening in that regard. You mentioned the Stigma Conference, but I can also think of Beyond Type 1. They did a big campaign in India where they had this wonderful video which showcased people from different backgrounds and their journey with type 1 diabetes. So I think we need to have more of those sort of conversations. And I think that one, I almost went viral. I think it was like 25, 30 million plus people who watched that on social media. So I think it's that normalizing that discussion and making it normal for people to talk about their journey with diabetes that needs to happen in a lot of countries.
Stigma is so bad, especially in the low-income countries. It's so bad, and Nigeria is so bad. Is to tell our story and make it a conversation on the table. Every family gathering, you talk about it. Every friendship, every school. Let's initiate the school diabetes program with IDF, and let it be a conversation that comes up freely from those of us with the lived experience. So our story needs to be out there. Like all what you have talked about, the documentary in the developed country is their story. They come out to talk about it, they freely inject. I do that, but not everybody is like me. That is what has changed the story for me to appear as a bold person. And then my family is a conversation on the table. My family is involved. I'm not just talking, I practice what I preach. My family diet change. I feel very comfortable. So that conversation is what is making the public feel more relaxed. So stigma, when they see me injecting, almost everybody who sees me pumping that in, they are used to seeing me, so they know what it is. That's education. So it's making more people feel comfortable to even use insulin, to know that the child that is using that in school I should support. Policy needs to change like it did for HIV. Global policy were put together to help protect the people living with HIV, and so they are not stigmatized. I think we need that to be done more in diabetes, in the fields of diabetes, and for people living with it.
Thank you for speaking about that with such boldness. You're practicing what you preach. You're walking the talk. This needs all hands on deck, not just to wait for healthcare professionals to change the way they address people living with diabetes, but we need to tell them how they should address us. When somebody says, hey, you diabetic person, people don't want to be labeled. Yeah, I have the condition, but I'm not the condition. Please. I have diabetes, but I'm not diabetes, right? So that kind of a thing. I think it's always great. We've seen a lot of progress, so many
Oh
great
my
things
goodness.
happening around the world, and definitely we'll get to that other side of the world where we say, yeah, things are good now. But I believe even for people in the HIV and AIDS campaigns, things were not like that. But they did something. They challenged the norm. They changed the narrative. We're even learning so much from them. So I think that should always
Yeah,
be the thing. Let's
yeah.
continue walking the walk like we're doing. The next question that I have for us, it's something to do with global access, and these are things that we've always been discussing before the launch of the Align T1D. Yes, I know Priyanka, you know so much about it yourself because it was discussed in-house when you were still with Breakthrough T1D, and you know so much about it anyway. There's been a lot of progress, a lot of things have been happening, a lot of philanthropic organizations been giving, so many donations were given to help ease the burden that is experienced by people living with diabetes. Donations do come yearly in, year out, but we don't see much of a tangible result. Though, of course, we know that money is coming in. Despite that tremendous progress, and I know that millions of people still struggle to access the diagnosis, the insulin, the technologies, the quality of care that they need, like technology, I'm talking of even CGMs, for example. What you could tell us is what are the biggest gaps that maybe the global health leaders are still overlooking?
Type 1 diabetes is a big aspect because if you don't get access to insulin in type 1 diabetes, there's no alternative. This seriously is a question of life or death. We don't have any alternatives to insulin yet. So it is an important question. In policy, what we talk about, there are three A's. There are three A's of access: availability, its affordability, and its accessibility. All those three are really important.
Yes.
And from a global access perspective, I don't think we're hitting all those three. So I think in a lot of countries, we're still at the bottom level of just acceptability of living with type 1
Yes,
diabetes.
really.
And the acknowledgement, the fact that someone will need insulin for the rest of their life, that itself is such a huge burden that we're not even able to bridge that stigma. We still hear in India, even now, you hear of families taking the worst possible step because they can't imagine having to support their children to live with needing daily insulin. The next step in that is, of course, affordability. Like, even if you accept that your child has the condition and you need to access insulin, the fact that you be able to even afford this if you have to pay out of pocket for it 3 times a day, at the very least, for the rest of this child's life. And the last one is actually availability. So where even if you bridge those first
Have the
two,
money.
yeah, is it even available in your country? We're talking about, when it comes to insulin, you're talking about the more modern insulins. In India, yes, there's a government program, but it's still talking about human insulin. Are people in low-income countries able to access the technological advancements that we know exist everywhere else? It even exists on type 2 diabetes. So when it comes to type 2 diabetes in a lot of low-income countries, we're still talking about treatment with drugs like metformin or maybe insulin if it's really uncontrolled. Maybe they are now looking at drugs like gliclazide, but the latest drugs like GLP-1s are still incredibly unaffordable, if even available. So I think in a lot of countries, even including Africa, these drugs are very far away from even entering the market. So those three A's of access are really important from the global perspective.
Adding to what Priyanka has said, yeah, the three A's are key. Let's use Nigeria, for example. Government came in and changed the economy to the worst state it is. Companies that were here in the country, because we were importing our medication, insulin, they all moved out of Nigeria. So it's not available anymore. I cried the day Novo told me they were leaving. Sanofi said they were leaving. About 3 of them, they left Nigeria. We don't even have any insulin. We now buy it through other people. And you can imagine the cost. And then the dollar went up. It's horrible. No, can't afford anything anymore. I used to donate to people insulin. I used to support people with my insulin. I can't even afford it alone for myself. With my money, I can't even afford. It's not available. If it's available, you can afford it. If you can afford it, you can't even get. That's just for the small population. For the larger Nigerian people, they depending on insulin, they can't afford it, especially the type 1. It breaks my heart every day seeing that the government, who can do something about it? Sincerely, the government can do something about it. We don't need to depend on any aid. I know my country is very rich when it comes to that, but they're not doing something about it. What can we do to change this? It's still our story. Our story is what we change it. Act with my story and the story of these children, these mothers, these fathers, and move on to National Assembly to bring it to their attention, the dire need and the lack of insulin and medication. The two kids to check. If you are injecting a child without checking the sugar, you are putting that child's life at risk. Or even myself, I take 2 insulin, 2 types, short-acting and long-acting. And this is not affordable. Imagine, for me, who is a horrible thing for African countries and low and middle income countries. The WHO should please, as they are fighting for investment and their global diabetes compact is being put together, it should be done with urgency so that we can start implementing. I know they are moved from point A, B, C. We are close to middle to conclude on how we are to implement global diabetes compact, but countries still are not aware of it. So awareness needs to be there so that countries can buy in. And with what you are doing, that can also help. Put it out there. Everybody should do something.
Thank you so much. I think even for the three A's that you both talked about, there are some people now, I don't know if they're scholars or people that are being inventive enough, or maybe they could just say four A's. They are trying to remove that availability to awareness. They say, of course, if the medications are available, if the services are available, do people know that these things exist to them? A right is a good thing. But if people don't know about their rights, then it's nothing. Thank you so much for what you've both talked about. I think people should just say four A's. They just want them to maintain them as three A's and say, oh, of course, this is what we talk about. Priyanka, I know that we could call you the data queen, not just here in this
Yeah,
podcast, but in
please.
this world, which I think that is maybe one of the biggest reasons why you joined JDRF back in the days when you started it. And now we still talk about the T1D index. So many things are still coming in and all that kind of a thing.
That's
So
the
I
one
think
thing there.
my question to you, Priyanka, will be we have more data than ever before, from the Type 1 Diabetes Index to national and global reports. Why do so many evidence-based solutions struggle to become reality on the ground, regardless of the data that we have?
Data is just one aspect of the puzzle, so to speak, but it's a very important one. I think evidence-based decision-making is a central part of most modern decision-making process. So people want to see the evidence of either the
The
lack of
data.
something or the impact, what is the actual either financial impact or impact in terms of cost to the economy or to the impact on human life. So all those are really important data points. We have to consider as advocates because we have to understand we are competing against a whole range of other conditions when we're trying to get attention and we're trying to get funding. And especially in a lot of low-income countries, you're competing with infectious disease. So if you'll see with the T1D index, if you go to the website and you look at the comparisons, we do actually map the trajectory of type 1 diabetes compared to other public health conditions. So we compare it to HIV, we compare it to type 2 diabetes. So we compare it to other health conditions to show just how quickly the prevalence of type 1 diabetes is rising. But again, that data is just one aspect. At the end of the day, that data needs to be used by somebody. It needs to be in the hands of advocates who can take it and add that layer of lived experience on top of that data to build that compelling case. And to go in front of decision makers like politicians, like government bureaucrats, and be able to convince them that this is important. So data by itself, like just the data on the index website, does nobody any good. It's only when it's used by people to ask for what it is that they need that it becomes powerful.
I don't know if everybody will be able to use that simulation tools in the age of AI. There's so much happening out there. If we cannot use it, I think it becomes meaningless for us. Thank you so much, Priyanka, for that and for everything that you have done to contribute to
Yeah.
the things that we see today. My question to you, Osarenkhoe, many organizations now they speak about engaging people with lived experience. You're part of NCD Alliance, you're part of Nigeria Diabetes Association, you have your own diabetes organization, and apart from being an entrepreneur yourself, what does meaningful engagement actually look like, and how can institutions move from this tokenism?
We are lived experience experts. When you have accepted that you're living with the condition, you're no longer in denial. So you can be called a lived experience expert. And according to the WHO document on meaningful engagement framework that was launched last year, that speaks to that fact. You who is living with the condition, you are important. You, an expert, and you are the driver. You need to drive. Look at the story of Bianca. Her story from her work, she turned her life around and noticed that she can do something about it. That's what lived experience expert does. Look at me. Look at you. Our life is involved around our condition. Now, lived experience expert, if it's in the table where decision is being taken, that decision taking will have more impact in changing the negative narrative of that condition. And that's what we experienced from HIV, because they were co-creator or creators of decision, policy, program, everything. You're designing a device for them. They are part of the design. They will tell you, oh, this CGM, in Africa, we swear it a lot. So if you're going to design a CGM for us in Africa, you need to design the one that can match that can go very well with us because it's humid. The weather here is humid and our skin is like this is how the texture of our skin is. So that is what a lived experience, being part of research, decision policy, everything around them, what it means is they need to be involved. That's what the word lived experience expert or people living with. So lived experience experts are the ones that can use their story to change all these narratives that are not working for people living with diabetes. Like your story you just shared now. As a lived experience expert, you should change that. Empower the mother, empower the young child, empower the community to change that mindset. That is what a lived experience expert can do in any community. So we are a powerful force. Without us, there's nothing that can happen without us.
There's a statement that people normally use. They say, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. It may take time. I think that has been amazing. And I think as we wind up from our conversation, there's one thing that is actually coming out that there's need to be consistent. We need to be persistent. We need to be patient to see the things that we are working towards so that probably they'll come to fruition. It's not just like if you start talking about it now, it's going to change tomorrow. That could take ages and taking maybe years to come to accomplishment, right? For advocacy, I think that it can be rewarding in a way if we see a win. Even if we see a win in Australia alone, that's a win for us at a regional level. That's a big win. We celebrate that. For advocacy, I know that it can be rewarding, but it can also be emotionally, mentally, and it can be financially demanding. People that are probably going to listen to this, some of them, they are not even involved in advocacy, but they would want to. What keeps you motivated when progress feels slow?
Your voice changed the story. Like we tell you the good testimony as we were here and we're talking with Priyanka, and she told me about T1 index. I had to mention what that information she gave to me. I told them, whatever change, we need to impute T1. We have all the information there, and this is it, this is it. And they right there, they Googled it. So that's what supports and that's what information does, and that's what encourages me. It took me how many years? I have been on this journey since 2018, trying to bring attention to Nigeria, trying to bring Nigerian people's mind to knowing that advocacy is not a thing that you should shy away from. Stigma was actually what caused people not to be coming out. Some of them ask for money. But you, as a humanitarian, which I am, and we know that it's good to be rewarded for a little token, but it's not what should drive you. You want to change. I want my friend to be safe. But today, I don't want that to happen to me or anybody around me. So how can they make that happen? Is when people volunteer. And if tomorrow we are being given a token, because people in low-income country, people need to finance their network. But we are here now. I'm paying. Somebody needs to be on to talk. They will want to know whether they will get something. And if I need to travel from here to Abeokuta, another state, to not at all financially rewarding, but you are changing life. So that is what I want to tell people. Don't let money be. Set up an NGO, change your community, and from this far, come to UBD. I will support you from here. That is how I'm reducing my burden. That's how I'm reducing my burnout. Encouraging people, from the north, from the east. Like I said, I'm in member of Lions Club, and they have embraced diabetes, one of our core projects. So people contribute, and we take from there to help the community do outreaches. That in my church, the same thing. In the mosques, the same thing. Just keep encouraging people to come out to give that. You make kindness from their hearts. Give that part of you without you asking for something. So that's how we can make the world a better place.
Here in Australia, I am now, I work as an executive director across a whole range of chronic conditions, and I ensure that the consumer representatives are compensated for the insights and the skills that they bring. And I think especially consumers from low-income countries should start demanding that recognition. It's not enough to fly us to a conference. Your time and your energy is valuable, and you need to ask for that to be recognized.
In low-income countries, that's what the meaningful engagement document is supposed to help us achieve. You understand? That's what it's supposed to, because they're supposed to recognize we are an expert, and our expertise, I have 26 years, you have over 12 years expertise, and Tino does that too. So how can we in low-income countries make this? Is it by just giving the government the document, What can we use to back it up to make
I
it
think
acceptable document and implement it?
think put a price point to it. So in Australia, we do say minimum is $100 an hour for a lived experience expert. And that kind of maps to, we have a tribunal that decides what are the rates for people who are not full-time staff members, but are contributing their time. That sort of benchmark, global benchmarks that are available in your country. Advocates together decide that, look, we all agree this is the benchmark, make a national sort of agreement around this, that this is what we as consumers agree that we should be paid for any government engagement or not-for-profit engagement, or any pharmaceutical company needs from us. This that.
Thank you so much. I think for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your amazing and unwavering commitment to improving the lives of people living with diabetes. And I believe that this is going to help inspire so many people, advocates, or from wherever they are. And I believe that even our audience, so we cannot thank them enough for always engaging, always giving us recommendations. So, yeah, I think for next time, we need you to bring people like this. We need you to bring other experiences, that kind of a thing. It's been so great, and I hope that this conversation is going to inspire so many people and the listeners. I believe that they will be able to listen deeply, to advocate more boldly, and to continue working together toward a future where every voice matters and every person has access to the care that they deserve. Until next time, this is the Global Diabetes Insights. Stay informed, stay engaged, and keep driving the change. So thank you so much to you for making the time to be part of this podcast. I don't know.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you.
You're doing well. Thank you.